What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another match preview. It's time to put that Arsenal game in the distant memory and look forward to the Champions League, something they're dying to play in. But we are here right now in the Champions League and we play Eintracht Frankfurt in our third group stage game. Really important game, actually, seeing as we did lose out in Lisbon last time out. I think it's really important to bounce back straight away against Frankfurt, and it'll be a very, very difficult game in a very intense atmosphere out in Germany, as West Ham realised last year. How are you feeling coming into this game, Sim?
Well, obviously not feeling great off the back of the loss to Arsenal and the fact that we lost our last Champions League game to Lisbon in a wasn't the best performance that we had out there in Lisbon, and it puts a lot more pressure on this game, and I think the players are going to feel that pressure, because if we don't win, especially if we lose, we're in a very difficult position in this group, albeit we do have 2 home games we can save ourselves in, but we shouldn't have to be relying on those given the group that we are in. So I would say that it's a tricky game. Frankfurt have started to come into a bit of form in their own league now as well, which makes it even more difficult. And it's going to be a feisty atmosphere. They're not going to make it easy for us whatsoever, but we do have the better players, and we do have we have the better team with the manager we have. We should be confident we can go there and get a result. But I don't know. I just got a horrible feeling that right now, with the way we're playing, although results have been okay, performances haven't been the best away from home. Our away record in Europe. We just got to be very careful going to this game that we don't slip up. Even if we draw, what does that put us on? It puts us on. It will keep us in second place. It puts us on 4 points. It could mean Sporting Lisbon, if they win, kind of stream ahead, could go 5 points ahead of us with a win, which would be bad. But it does keep us in second place. So obviously a draw wouldn't be the worst result in the world. But a defeat, all of a sudden, we're 3 points behind Frankfurt, and we're in massive danger of dropping out the group.
But we do have Frankfurt to play next game as well at home, so we can make up for that fairly quickly. But
it's head to head.
Yeah, it's head to head, so we need to beat them by more than they beat us. Exactly. Look, I think it's going to be a very tough game. When you're talking about Frankfurt, you're actually talking about the form team in the Bundesliga right now. They sit top of the form charts. Last 5 games played, it's with 12 points, with Freiburg with 11 points just below them. I mean, looking at Bayern Munich, they're all the way down in 9th with 6 points. But anyway, with Frankfurt, you're talking about a team banging form right now. They've won their last 3 games, have lost a couple in there as well in their last 5, but this is including cup games and Champions League games. Notoriously, they're not a very high scoring team, but they like to keep things very regimented and solid. They have a bit of a similar playing style to us, to be honest. They play that 3-4-3 formation. They like to spring on teams. Do you take their Bundesliga form into account? Or
100%. Of course you do, because if they're playing with high confidence, that's going to give them much more chance of getting the win. Last season, albeit they won Europa League while finishing in mid-table, so you could argue that Bundesliga form didn't account for much back, last season when they went on to win the competition. But good performances breed momentum, and they had a slow start to the season, but clearly they're building momentum right now, and that's got to be a worry for us, that they're coming into this game high on confidence. They just beaten Union Berlin, who are sitting top of the Bundesliga, so they're going to come into this game not fearing anyone right now. So and especially with the way they play, the fact they keep it tight, and the fact that they like to restrict the opposition first and foremost from creating chances. That is kind of the least team we like to play against, in a way, because we like to do things in a similar way, and we're not very good at coming at teams who are sitting in a low block. Or we haven't been this season anyway, or last season. So that's something to be careful of and wary of, and especially if Kulusevski is out, do we have the tools to beat them in a low block? With the likes of Son and Richarlison not being the most kind of in those kind of spaces. They like to have a lot of space. They don't like to play within small spaces. So it's going to have a lot of pressure on Harry Kane to kind of be that lock picker. And if he isn't on his game, or if they're shackling him, I can see it being very difficult.
Yeah, but we will have hopefully players out on the ride like Perisic. He can easily unlock their defence as well. What are you looking at Frankfurt? Obviously, in the Champions League, in the last game, they had a very, tight victory away at Marseille. Opening game, though, they got absolutely battered by Sporting Lisbon at home.
Yeah.
So surely that's something that we should be looking at and trying to capitalise on where they went wrong that game.
For sure. Lisbon are a bit more of an offensive side, so they're more used to having possession and things like that. So that kind of they're used to teams sitting deep, whereas we like teams to come out. So it's fairly different. But for sure, if Lisbon are capable of victory, why can't we? And of course, we are capable of victory, but it's just not going to be very easy with the way Frankfurt like to play. Looking at the first game, you're thinking, okay, they lost 3-0. They're going to be the whipping boys, but they came back and got a very good result away at Marseille, who are a team which we were very much struggling against before they went down to 10 men in our game against Marseille. So it's not to be sniffed at that they went away to Marseille and won. So for sure, it's going to be a difficult game, and they're definitely building on what last season was a very good campaign for them, albeit they've lost some crucial players like Filip Kostic, who went to Juventus, but they seem to be getting their act together after a slow start to the season. That's got to be something to be worried about. And especially with Conte's record in Europe, with the fact that he usually doesn't like to play 2 games in a week in that sense, with Kulusevski being out, which means there's probably going to be more pressure on the front three to play again and maybe expend even more energy. There are definitely things to be worried about in this game, but if we can get the game plan right and be sharp and be on our game, there's no reason why we can't go and win. Absolutely, but it's not going to be walk in the park.
Yeah, absolutely right about that. If we go look at the predicted lineup for Eintracht Frankfurt in this game, in terms of the injured players, you've got Götze, which is injured. Obviously, he signed there in the summer, and he's actually made quite a good start to life at Frankfurt, scoring 2 goals already in his first 8 games for Frankfurt. But when you're looking at this particular lineup, I took it from the game at the weekend where they beat Union Berlin. Götze did play and score in that game, but he did go off injured, so we've put in Lindstrom instead of him. So Muani, Lindstrom and So as their front 3. Muani as well is another player that they've signed in the summer, I think from the Belgian league, and he's also started life pretty well there. Or is it 3 goals and 5 assists or something crazy like that?
Muani, yeah.
So you've got him, you've got Kamada as well, who I kept a keen eye on him last year. I thought he was brilliant in their Europa League run. Really tricky customer in Kamada that will go for you, that will literally non-stop go for you. And they've also got players at the back like Hasebi, their captain, and Ndika, who we were linked with in the summer. How much quality do you think there's here in this team?
There is definitely a lot of quality. Look, they won Europa League at the end of the day. You can't do that with awful players, and they showed their quality. I think Evan Ndika is a centre-back who I was really interested in Spurs bringing in the summer. Left-footed, likes to get forward as well, really strong. Obviously, he can he's still a bit raw because he's young, but he's a centre-back, the higher quality. You mentioned Kamada. He can play in the forward line. He can play in midfield. He's very much a tricky customer. He's like a little playmaker in the centre. And he against West Ham, he was absolutely fantastic last season, I remember. He's a real tricky dribbler. He's got really good close control, and he's going to be a very difficult player to shackle. Muani, I didn't know much about him, but he started life at Frankfurt really, really well. He did get sent off on the weekend, and maybe shows his desire more than anything for the team. And he's played 2 goals and 6 assists so far in his first 12 games. But they've also got a very, very good goalkeeper in Kevin Trapp, who's got caps for Germany. He was linked with Man United in the summer. He's a real top goalkeeper. So defensively in their structure, they're very tough to break down. Even if you do, they got a very tough goalkeeper to beat at the back, and they like to sit back and wait for you as well. And they got very quick players like Muani, who if you leave too much space, they can exploit. With players like Kamada playing, and also they play the 3 at the back system, so they're very, very wide. Obviously, it was more of a problem when they had people like Kostic, but clearly they've signed players with a way of replacing him. So it's going to be a very difficult game. They play a way which we don't like to play against as well. They play kind of a philosophy which, we've struggled against. So I can see it being a very difficult. I don't see it being like a brilliant game of football between these two sides.
I completely agree, yeah.
I can see it being kind of not pretty, but it's all about who has maybe a few more moments of quality. And I'm backing us to have that, seeing as we have the better players. But we have to go in there with the right attitude. We can't let the game pass us by and be kind of like, sometimes we go into these games and we just kind of going through the motions a bit. And that frustrates me. We need to be really aggressive from the start and make sure that we don't allow Frankfurt too much control in this game, which we have done in too many of our away games this season. We have to make sure we're on the front foot as much as possible, and we need to get that front three involved as much as possible.
Yeah, look, I think you put it absolutely brilliant. Can't really put it better myself. But in terms of Kamada, I mean, the guy's got 4 goals and 3 assists in the Bundesliga so far this year in 7 games. He got 4 goals and 3 assists the whole of last season in the Bundesliga. So that shows how much of a good start to the season he's having. But in terms of what you've just said, with our away performances, especially our away European performances, how do you see the game going, and what's your score prediction?
Yeah, as I've said, I think it's going to be a tight game. I can see it being a 1 goal either way, that kind of game. With Berlin, them beating Berlin on the weekend, I really believe the place is going to be rocking now, if it wasn't going to be already, because they got a really amazing fan base. Frankfurt, it's going to be an intense fan base. We don't travel well in Europe. I honestly would not be surprised if this game finishes in a draw. I'm going to go ask to nick it 1-0. I think it's going to be a tight game. We're going to find a moment of quality, and hopefully we can hold tight. But if we could easily come away with this game with a draw, and it wouldn't be the worst result. It would be a bit disappointing because it still leaves the group fairly open, but still at least it leaves us in second place, and it leaves us in a better position to qualify. So if you offered me a draw now, would I take it? I wouldn't take it, but if you told me it was going to be a draw, it wouldn't be a disaster. Is what I'm saying. But I still think we have the quality to win. We're good enough to win. But it's just on this this sense of occasion where it could, hopefully it doesn't come unstuck, but there is that possibility it could.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, with a draw, with our next 2 games being at home, it wouldn't look. I agree, it wouldn't be the end of the world at all, and I think it'd be a fairly good result to go away to Frankfurt and get a draw. It's a fairly good result. I mean, most draws away in Europe are pretty good, to be honest. Let's be honest,
yeah.
And especially in the Champions League. And when you're looking at our form in the Europa League, in the Conference League, against all these like tin pot teams, we go away, we can't even beat them. I'm expecting a bit of a better performance when we go away to Frankfurt Tuesday night, but it's going to be very intense. I think if we get the first goal, then I think we can go on and beat them. But
yeah, if we get an early goal, it does change it a bit.
But if they get the first goal, we're going to come under very, very increasing pressure. They're going to sit even lower and try and make it even more difficult for us to beat them. So I do think the first goal is vitally crucial on Tuesday night. Having said that, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Spurs. I think it will be kind of judged by the odd goal. But I'm backing the boys. I'm backing the boys to go and do the job. But if we do get a draw, let's not overreact, because we do have 2 home games in the Champions League, and I back us to beat any of these teams at home. So
I can already see the overreaction to a draw already.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So I think if it is a draw, let's just try stay calm, because like there still is a long way to go in this group, and you back us at home against Frankfurt, you back us at home against Sporting. So if we win those 2 games, then we're in a very commanding position in the group, and it's probably most likely qualify. So there you have it. I'm going 2-1 to Spurs. My brother's going 1-0 to Spurs. Let me know your score predictions in the comments section below. The Champions League is back, people, and we'll be flying out to Germany. Well, we're actually in Germany right now, seeing as we recorded this yesterday, but we'll be giving you all the content from inside the ground and around and about Germany. So keep an eye out for that. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.